Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and you all know how much I love a Kickstarter. It is like one of the things I look forward to the most. And a little while ago, a gentleman reached out to me to talk about his Kickstarter that's just started this week. And through trials, literally, and tribulations, we've managed to finally hook up. It's Blake McCarthy of Territory fame. Blake, how's it going?
Good, Johnny. I'm glad this finally worked to get to do this.
Excellent. Time zones did us in.
Yeah, time zones, jury trial. The universe was trying hard not to make it happen, but take that, universe.
Yeah, screw you, universe.
Yeah.
I suppose, hey, the trial, at least hopefully the guy got girl even, got some serious time, right? It wasn't just a parking fine, right?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I sat for a couple hours and then they were like, by the way, one of the lawyers has COVID, so you can all leave now. So it was just a complete waste of time, but it counted for my service for the year, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'll take it.
Round of applause for Blake doing his civic duty there.
That's right. Excellent. I did my best.
Yeah. You were there with your pen and paper ready to go Quincy on his ass. All right. Okay. All the old timers will get that. All right. Enough. Juries and trials and whatnot and time zones. We're here to talk about your fantastic Kickstarter. Tell us about Territory. What is the scoop?
Yes, thank you. So Territory is a post-apocalyptic Kaiju book. It's going to be a mini-series, 5 issues long. The new Kickstarter launched yesterday, actually, for issue 3. So this is kind of the, kind of the middle, kind of the climax. The overall story is basically we're in this post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear world in the far distant future, and the remaining people now live in tribes. And there are these kaiju that have come about as this nuclear event, and the people in the tribes worship the kaiju as gods. So each tribe kind of worships one of the kaiju as their gods, and that kind of gives the tribe their, unique feel. And we follow a girl, Alkia, who's, just kind of, I'm thinking kind of late teens, a girl on the cusp of becoming a woman who's been raised with this kind of kaiju religion. And the story is kind of about her journey as she comes face to face with the kaiju, and her beliefs get challenged, and everything gets challenged. But it's just kind of an interesting take on belief, and got some good kaiju action in there and all that.
Yeah. So I must admit, the belief element hit me from page 1, issue 1. I was like straight away into this. Before we get too much into like the ifs, buts, and why fors, why don't we show the guys your video? Because you have a video on your Kickstarter. So let's get this.
Yes.
Let's get this added up there. You can see. Here we go. Let's see how this works. Wow. Talk about powerful. You've set us up for the Kaijus being the kind of the gods of the world, and now you're telling us one's, man, I cry every time Godzilla falls.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, when you read a kaiju book, you read it for the kaiju action, right? But I really wanted to make the stakes of these epic battles, because, these are godlike creatures, and so I wanted the stakes in this book of these battles to feel really high. And so, I want the battles to be, brutal and intense and have real consequences. And especially because what happens to the kaiju really affects the people in this book. They're very connected. And so, just kind of bringing that impact from the kaiju kind of all the way down to the people and seeing that connection.
It's funny because you talk about the connection in the book between the kaiju and the characters. The lead female character is pro kaiju from the get go, isn't she? She's like, right, these exist, these are gods, this is it, I'm there.
Totally. Yeah. So Alkia is the main character, and like I said, the idea behind her was to show someone who's, she's raised by this tribe, and this tribe is led by a healer who's also kind of the spiritual leader of the tribe, and he's extremely zealous, about this kaiju religion. And he views himself as kind of the, interpreter for the kaiju. So the kaiju kind of do their thing, and they're not really even aware of the people, but the people, kind of interpret the kaiju's actions and tell a story to kind of fit their religion, right?
Right.
And so she's grown up in this community that it's, this is just what you believe. It's not to be questioned. This is, how she was raised. So she's initially very devout. She's very zealous. There's a couple people who kind of question her on some things, and she gets real upset if you question her beliefs. And so that was kind of the human part of this story I wanted to tell is, when you challenge beliefs, especially beliefs that someone holds very personal or someone grew up with and, hasn't really had a chance to ever question, like, how do people react? How do they respond? Do their beliefs change? How do they change, and all that?
It's interesting because you've got to think that, especially stateside, there's this whole thing about church and state, right?
Well, supposedly, yes.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that one. And I remember when I took my kid to his first, I guess you'd say, kindergarten. I was very keen on the school, kind of being open-minded towards religion. I'm not an overly religious person to start with myself. I don't. If anybody is, that's totally fine. I'm not one of these people who say it's my way or the highway. Unless we're talking football, then it's the Dolphins all the way.
Gotta go Broncos here.
Oh man, my mate Josh is a Broncos fan.
Sounds like he's got good taste.
Yeah. Whatever. Don't you start. Well, you've got Russell Wilson this year, so you never know.
Yes.
A defense that's pretty real.
It should hopefully be better.
Yeah. So I was quite keen to find out the school's policy on what it teaches as religion. I would like a more open forum and let people and kids decide as they grow up which form of religion they want to partake, if any, rather than have one particular format or interpretation.
100%. And that's kind of, I'm very similar to you. I'm an atheist. I'm also a father. I have 2 boys. And and like you said, like, this book isn't meant to be a critique of religion. I'm not saying you shouldn't believe in religion. People should believe what they want, and that's fine. What this book is kind of examining is just what you were talking about, that open-mindedness, and it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned the schools and stuff, because kind of the ultimate audience I kind of had in mind for this is like someone who is raised in a Catholic school, or like a very devout religious school from a young age, where that's all they've ever known. And that's, they've been told not to question it. These are the answers, don't question them. Yeah. And that's kind of where this character is in the beginning. And so then, when you challenge that, when you expose people who have been, who just haven't had a chance to be exposed to a lot of different kinds of beliefs or faith or to question things or learn things, how do they react? How do we interpret something that, maybe something we took for granted isn't necessarily the truth, or there are other options out there?
Well, and I think that's a great point, because it's open to interpretation, isn't it? And using the Kaiju as a metaphor for God, or a god, shall we say, you're opening up a whole sort of like, not just one interpretation, because you've got the girl's interpretation, then a mate who's kind of just like a little bit cynical, then you've got the shaman who's like all in, then he's like charismatic and he brings everybody else, even when things seem absolutely pointless, he's still giving it yes, but works in mysterious ways type of speech. And I think that's a really well observed piece of metaphor when you're trying to give each aspect its due, right? Because as you said, you're not trying to be a critique on religion. You're not saying it's pro or against. You're saying, right, this is this. This group feel like this. This group feel like this. This person feels like, and then it's up to the reader to kind of decide their path a little into how they interpret the actions. Some will doubt the lead character for doubting in the gods, and some will stand by her and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's you know what, it seems like quite a heavy task to try and do. What made you think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to write a monster book and just give all these like nuances and facets? Because it's, you know, when you break it down, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is, and you know, it's been a really fun journey. And one thing I really like about what you said is it's up to the reader's interpretation. That was one of the main goals. You know, you have these different kaiju, and they're all kind of treated as gods. You know, but then in different tribes believe different ones, and like you said, so I tried to incorporate kind of, you know, a whole scale of characters from the cynical to the devout and everyone in between, which was interesting as a writer because it made me, you know, kind of think about my own beliefs and also try to get in the mindset of people who believe something different than I do. And, you know, because I don't just want it to come off as preaching what I believe or my interpretation of something. You know, I wanted to, like you said, no matter what you believe, no matter where you are, be able to kind of relate to one of the characters. So, you know, trying to think in all the different ways from cynical to devout and everything in between, and try to make that character feel realistic, was really fun. And as far as like the idea, so the first thing I knew I wanted to do was write a kaiju book, because I'm a big Godzilla fan, and that was when I knew I wanted to do a comic. Like that was kind of the start, was I just wanted to do a kaiju book. But then it was like, how do you add more to that? Because, you know, I love kaiju, but, you know, a lot of the stories are very similar, either thematically or, you know, just the way they're told. You know, you get the big monsters, they smash the buildings, they fight, everyone's scared, and then, you know, kind of whatever happens. And there's a lot of different takes, but trying to add some more meaning to that was one of my goals. And to me, like, you know, and it's in his name, Godzilla, he would be a naturally awe-inspiring figure. You know, if Godzilla were to rise up from the sea, like, people would worship him. There would be religions and cults and stuff built around him. And so, you know, just trying to kind of take that idea further of, you know, if these sort of, you know, incredible creatures existed, people would worship them. People would be inspired. We would see, you know, religions born from that, and then take it to where, you know, you've got it in this world where there's only so many people left, and these kaiju are the dominant species now. So, you know, they become even more godlike. And that was the inspiration.
It's interesting. You bring up Godzilla, right? When I was a kid watching like the really old Godzilla movies from the 70s and 80s, I always thought Godzilla was a good guy, right? And I always used to get confused at some point, because somewhere along the line something dodgy would happen to him. I'd be like, why are they attacking him? He's the good guy. It wasn't until I started sort of going back as later years, going back and rewatching Godzilla movies. He just exists.
Exactly.
And everything else revolves, you know, the humans are trying to get him to do something. He doesn't even know what the humans want. He just knows that there's some great monster in his way. He wants to back the damn thing. He doesn't care that the other monster's trying to, you know, he has no perception of anybody else other than, and that discord as a kid didn't sit with me, because I'm used to Western stuff where like there's a clear good guy and a clear bad guy.
Right.
You know?
And yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, because I grew up on the movies as well. And again, kind of, you know, as I got into them older, started to kind of understand them more and go back into the history of Godzilla. And that's, you know, when he first came, the first Godzilla movie, like, he is the villain. He is the most, you know, he's a metaphor for the atomic bomb. He's the most terrifying force that we've seen on our planet. And he's, you know, complete destruction. Like, he is, you know, he's a threat to humanity. And then you know, he kind of got morphed into, you know, kind of a good guy as they you know, made more movies, made more monsters, and, you know, with his popularity and everything. But and like you said, though, he's a true alpha. Like, he doesn't care what those under him are doing, because it doesn't affect him. He's going to do what he's going to do. And so that was the same kind of feel I wanted to go for. with the kaiju in these books. I wanted them to feel very primal, very animalistic, because kind of in the story, they've risen out of this nuclear apocalypse, and they're kind of the Earth's defense and the Earth's response to what humanity has done to the planet. And so, they are at this point, they are the alphas. They don't care about what we do because it really doesn't affect them. We're no threat. And so that, and that again makes them even more godlike in my mind, because to us, like we can interact with these things, but we really can't change what they do at all. They are the alphas. They're going to do what they're going to do. And humanity at this point is subject to their whims.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, like, I like the kind of more primal Godzilla. It's fun when he's a superhero. It's fun when he's just beating up the bad guys. But I think kind of the original idea of this primal, destructive natural force is my personal favorite interpretation.
Yeah. The Godzilla, there's been a couple of new recent Godzilla movies, hasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
What was the one before King Kong? Godzilla vs. King Kong?
So the King of the Monsters. Yep.
Right. So, quick Kaiju story then. Over here in 2020 to 21, the Christmas period, we were in a lockdown. Right. So my wife and I were out. We were going to go out to like the local pub to have a Christmas dinner and all that. We couldn't have family around. It was just me and her. We absolutely murdered a piece of pork because we're useless cooks and whatnot. And we ended up watching the King of Monsters Godzilla movie because it was on the box. We just ended up watching it. And that whole sense of Godzilla just doing what the hell he wants.
Yes.
And everybody, it still confused me because I was like, why can't we just let him do what he wants? And like, oh no, we have to apply motive and intent to him. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work because he just doesn't care.
And that's the human instinct, right? As we anthropomorphize things, we assign our feelings and our, purpose to everything in the world, animals, all that. And it's like, it's how we deal as a species. It just seems like that's naturally what our brain needs to do to kind of understand things. But it really fails. And you see it in like conservation and animal care today, like people who, try to assign feelings to animals. We're learning more and more that they're operating on instinct. They don't care, they're not happy, sad, mad, or anything. They're, trying to survive. And that just, our brains think so differently that it's hard for us to understand. So, and then and again, with mythology and religion, it kind of takes that to the next level, where then we, create stories around something that, was probably just naturally occurring. But to understand it from a human perspective, we assign these stories, we assign this meaning to it. And that's kind of what happens in the book.
Cool. All right. Okay. So I think some of the messages that we're talking about, they occur early on in the first issue. We're having a look here. And you can see prior to the Kaiju turning up, the character's saying a prayer. She's like, praising the god, as if to say, look, I know you're there, please don't kill me, sort of thing. And of course it doesn't, or else the book would be over damn quick.
Yes. A short story.
Yeah, a short story back. But it just again proves how less impactful her belief is on the Kaiju, but it's massive for her. So that was interesting. The design of this one that we're looking at right now, you're a Kaiju fan. Did you come up with the design, or did you ask your artist to kind of put these together, or did you give kind of pointers?
Yeah. So this is the Great Horn. This is kind of the main monster we've seen. It's the one that Alkia worships, her tribe worship. And so I had the idea as far as generally what I wanted to look like. I wrote a description, in the script, and it was, I wanted it. So again, I wanted these to be very primal, animalistic. So, inspired by animals kind of in the region. So this one, obviously kind of bear, elk, deer, is the main idea. But then I basically just asked Chris Sassman's the artist, and he did an amazing job. I said, I kind of want like a bear, elk, kind of combo, but just, mutate it a little bit, make it look unnatural, make it look horrifying, make it look like something that, is, we want to be natural, but we just kind of realize like isn't. It's twisted, it's corrupted. And so then he came out with this, which is absolutely amazing. And I actually have the original art for this page behind me. I bought it from him because it's just I think it's just so cool.
I hope he gave you mate rates.
Yeah, I mean,
do you have mate rates over there? So when you make work somewhere, you get mate rates. So friends and family discount, you know, you give them yeah. Sorry, call it mate rates over.
Definitely. Well, and he's actually based out of South Africa too, so it was kind of a but he shipped it real well, and it turned out awesome. And it's cool. I'm just so glad I have it because that monster and his art and his level of detail and everything are incredible.
I will say that the art, especially around the monster, is gorgeous.
Yes,
right? There are a couple of poses here and there that kind of draw my eye, but that's every comic book, so I'm used to that now. But the level of detail, because you want the interest to be in the kaiju, and it works really well, absolutely really well. Did Chris also provide the colors?
No. So the colorist is actually Ichsan Ansori, based out of Indonesia, and Chris and him had worked together previously, which is how he got on board, and they obviously work extremely well together. And like you said, I mean, just the level of detail and everything, and that was the thing with this book. I had a story to tell and kind of a very human story, but the visual interest of this book is definitely in the kaiju, and I wanted to have kind of a cinematic feel, and Chris drew it that way, and then Ichsan really added another level with the colors.
It looks gorgeous. I mean, Chris has a style that reminds me a little bit of Pat Broderick, a little bit. An old-time artist from a few years back. The colors are absolutely gorgeous. For me, the colors bring the page to life.
Yes.
You can almost feel the sweltering heat of a deserted city there. It works really well. Facially, it's great. I noticed throughout this first issue, there's kind of a couple of different paces going on. So at times there's a lot of words versus sometimes a lot of show not tell. Was that a style that you were going for, to let the art breathe through the book?
So I definitely wanted to let the art breathe as much as possible, just because, like I said, I think that's the real strength of the book. It's very eye catching, and I mean this world, I think. You've got a primal world, but you've got human stuff there. So you've got this kind of post-apocalypse, but it's not really futuristic like you're used to seeing. Plus, obviously, you've got the kaiju and these sort of mutated animals running around. So the visual world is really interesting. As far as the different pacing for the first issue, I blame that on me not hiring an editor. And and this was my first one, and I didn't, and I got Nicole DeAndrea for the second issue, and I just really wish I had gotten her when I put the first one out, because she really, I think, helped me understand a lot about pacing and storytelling and what points to hit and all that, because this first issue, I am happy with it. I thought it turned out well, but I think it would have turned out a lot, even better if she was there to really help me understand these. So I think that, this first issue is maybe a little rougher than the next couple, just because there wasn't an editor on board. And so it didn't quite have the pacing and the feel down yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason why I bring the pacing up is because some pages there's loads of word bubbles, other times there isn't. So I just want to talk about this bottom panel here, this one here. How gorgeous is that?
Totally.
I'm just, we talk about how great the colors are, but then look, take a more simplistic view of what's going on, and it absolutely tells you, doesn't it, from that point on? That is a really striking piece of work.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one thing that Chris does really well, I mean, obviously he's a very technically sound artist, is he's also a great visual storyteller. Like, he understands how to use panels like that, where like I didn't write that in the script. I had a general description of kind of what was happening, but he was the one that decided to go with the silhouette against the background, and just his ability to visually tell a story, to make things interesting, to mix up the panels, mix up the flow and everything. I think it really helps elevate the book. And it's a writer's best friend, because I can write something and be like, hey, this happens, and then he just makes it look cool, and I'm like, well, that isn't what I pictured. It's way better than I had in my head, so I love it.
It's one of the questions I always ask writers, especially of kind of Kickstarter projects. because I always feel that writers, by definition, end up being mini editors in their own little way. It's kind of like, right. So I'm always intrigued in how the worker relationship between the writer and the artist goes, because as a writer, you're like, man, I didn't write it like that, but the artist is like, yeah, but you can't draw, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, like Chris is an awesome guy, and we get along very well. We work together very well. One thing that I've been really thankful for on this book is just the collaboration between all of the team. You know, Chris and I have talked a lot. Obviously, him and Ichsan work really well. You know, I've talked to Ichsan too. Like just everyone, I feel like everyone kind of contributes. And then the letterer too, Marco Della Verde, like with the letters too, he kind of adds that last layer, you know, that really brings it to life. And just that, you know, I think, especially as a newer writer, I try to be really open-minded because I'm not an artist. I don't think as visually as like Chris does. And so when he, you know, comes up with, hey, we could, you know, take this story point and we could, you know, combine these panels, or we should add a panel here to add this detail or something like that. You know, it's almost always makes it so much better, makes it more clear. And like I said, that visual storytelling makes it so much more interesting. So
I hear that a lot as well from when people work really well together. It's that collaboration element, that kind of, you know, being able to draw the best out of the writing. The reason why I'm put on this page here is you've talked about how the characters sound kind of like a coming of age character, and I think this panel pretty much carries that off brilliantly. She's kind of like, up to this point, you feel she's kind of, you know, that teen, maybe an older teen, but she's, you know, but this one you can see straight away she's trying to, you know, show herself in a different light, and you kind of realize how her tribe's interacting with that. So I thought that was a really nice point in which to drop that change in her in there. So
well, thank you. I appreciate it. And this is actually, I'm glad you showed this one, because this is one of my favorite shots of Alkia in the whole series. Again, Chris just, you know, captured her so well. And like you said, it adds a lot of depth to her character, because, you know, she's young enough that she still feels like she's got to listen to her parents, and she's, you know, very influenced by kind of the adults and the authority around her. But she's getting old enough that, she's wanting to be independent. You know, her and Nebo, the male character down there in the bottom right, you know, you can see this relationship kind of blossoming, and, you know, so she's pushing to kind of make that change from girl to woman. And I agree. I think this is a really great visual way of showing that.
Definitely. Right, before we get into issue 2, and with a sneak preview of issue 3 coming, let us take a quick break. So let me ask you then, Blake, are you more of a Marvel fan or a DC fan, or do you not like either of them?
Between those two, definitely Marvel, and I like DC too.
Why does everyone say that?
Honestly, with Marvel, for me, it's just it's what I was raised on. My dad was a big Marvel fan when I started reading comic books. When I started going to the comic book store, you know, he read almost exclusively Marvel. I got into Spider-Man, was kind of the first big comic book I really got into, and so I think, you know, it's just I grew up with more Marvel books, and I have nothing against DC. I've read and I read DC books now, but Marvel is just kind of, you know, it's that nostalgia factor. Like if you start with something, it's hard to get away from it.
Fair enough. All right then. Well, just for Blake. All right, here's our advert for our Marvel show. It is the No Price Podcast. Check it out. That's right, the No Price Podcast for everything that's Marvel, Disney Plus, and the MCU. So you know they're going to be talking about Thor, and they're going to be talking about Obi-Wan. So, yeah, if those are your things, go check them out. The drops alternate Tuesdays. There you go. Right, cool. I want to have a quick question around the issue 2 cover, if I may. We've already talked a little bit about the discord between Alkea's beliefs and her perennial boyfriend's non-belief. I think this cover perfectly sums that up. You've got her kind of like leading on, and he's kind of giving it the sideways, isn't he? He's like,
Yeah.
have I misinterpreted this?
No, that was the intention. So I'm glad that's how it came across.
Cool.
And for this cover, we hadn't shown, and the first cover didn't have the Great Horn at all. It didn't have the monster, so we wanted to at least have it on the cover in some degree. And as this literally, having it as a horizon in the background and looming, and then like you said, she's kind of in the light, so to speak, looking towards it. And then he's kind of in the dark, the more cynical. He's a non-believer, and so it was supposed to show kind of that disconnect, and I'm glad that that's how it came across.
It's funny because he's a non-believer in the Kaiju, but he's a believer in her.
Yes, and that's I think something that, again, you see that in real life all the time, right? Like people who don't necessarily agree on whether it's religion or politics or whatever, you still get this attraction or friendship or relationship out of it. And, it's something that those differences can complicate things, can become hard sometimes, but it doesn't stop people from having a relationship. And so that was, having these characters who, want to be together and who like each other so much, but who also fundamentally disagree. Like, again, it gives you a good chance to, play with, okay, if we do this happen, how are they going to react? Will they find a common ground, or will it divide them? And, just creates more opportunities for storytelling.
You're absolutely right. In real life, I mean, I love my wife to bits, even though she watches Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, well, there's nobody's perfect, so.
I think I know more, but at this stage I know more about Grey's Anatomy than she does. I mean, what happens to McDreamy? It still breaks my heart. So
see, I got out of that one, so I can't. I'm not sure, but I'm sure my wife could jump in on the conversation.
There's a girl at work, a woman at work in my day job. She's just started watching Grey's Anatomy for whatever reason. She hasn't been into it at all, and she's like, "Oh, his wife's just turned up." I'm like, "Oh man, I feel so old. That feels like a lifetime ago."
Yeah.
But hey ho, back to this. Different again, art-wise. You can see the level of detail that's been put in some of these faces and some of these postures. It's like Chris has recognized that the key big moments are going to be the Kaiju, but to get to that big moment, you've got to have these like little big personal moments as well, haven't you?
Definitely, and I think
is that your writing? Is that your writing putting that in? It's your writing. Yeah.
Well, no. Because I mean, like you said, as a writer, you can only control so much. Like I have a general idea of kind of what the characters I want to say and what to happen, but it's got to visually come to life. And I think Chris's ability to make each character feel real with those poses, with those expressions, making them feel unique and distinct. Like you said, it really adds, it kind of grounds the story so that the Kaiju moments are more impactful, and that's, I think, the nice thing about a story like this is you have this real grounded human story. So you get these, these really strong emotions, these relationships that you see, ebb and flow and build throughout the story. And then, and that's all very ground level. And then, as a change of pace, suddenly you'll get these huge Kaiju, epic cinematic feeling kind of pages. And it keeps it from, just feeling like you're seeing the same thing throughout the book. But it, and like I said, I wanted the Kaiju actions to impact the people. And so, when you get these kind of ground level interactions with the people, that adds to the Kaiju action and vice versa.
Do you worry then, as a writer, that when you have two distinct, different kind of threads going on, that readers potentially will go for one more than the other? So I'll give you an example. I used to like the comic strip Luan. Do you remember Luan?
Not really, to be honest.
All right, so Luan's like, she's like a teenage girl. She's got an older brother. The older brother's a bit of a dweeb, but then he starts working out and becomes a firefighter and dates a hot girl. And it's kind of part of the Beast plot is he loses the girl, gets the girl, loses the girl. All the while, Luan and her characters are doing her ditzy girl stuff. I will
Mhm.
say right now that I love Luan as a comic strip, but it was her brothers trying to get the girl that got me interested in them. I didn't care about Luan,
Right.
you know. So in this, do you worry that you've got this really great dynamic between these two characters? Potentially, people will gravitate towards that over the Kaiju, or vice versa. How do you kind of get the balance so that both aspects are on equal ground?
Well, I think it's kind of what you said. You love the comic strip. You don't care about the main character, but that's just it. You don't have to care about her story because
Mhm.
if the other story is interesting, So in my mind, it's a potential to kind of hit a couple audiences. For the
Uh-huh.
people that just want to see, the kaiju fans that just want to see big monsters, watch them fight, see kaiju action. Great, read the book. There's lots of that in there. You'll get to
Mhm.
see, we've got 3 different kaiju. Especially issue 3 is basically one big kaiju battle through the whole thing. So if that's, what you want out of the book, it's there. But at the same time, people who are either looking for, more of the sort of philosophical parts about the religion, or just want to read interesting characters. I'm very proud of the way Alkia's character is written,
Mm.
and her relationship with Nebo, the male character, her relationship with the healer, her relationship with her parents. And so, as a coming of age story, like people who are just more interested in that coming of age part, like there's a story for them too. So
Mm.
I look at it as, if you're a fan of any of those things, you'll probably like the book. And, maybe you really love the coming of age story, and the kaiju part, you're like, yeah, that's okay or whatever. But then you get more coming of age story. So there's still something, for
Yeah.
you to like. And it's
Mhm.
just so that you just might focus more on that part of it. And the kaiju fans, will be like, oh, this, whatever these people are doing is cool, but look at these awesome fights. So, I
Yeah.
like it for that. So that's
Good.
kind of the goal, is to hopefully give out something for a lot of different audiences.
Good shout. Good shout. This is the spread for issue 2. You've got your Kaiju. These are your main Kaijus, yes? Then
Yep.
you've got your horned dude there. You've got, I don't know, lizard horn there, and spider frog in the middle there. Do these have names?
Yeah. So the Great Horn is still the one on the left, the
Yeah,
kind of bear, the main one, and then
yeah.
Aquamassus is the kind of amphibian frog lizard, kind of
Okay.
combo. And again, the inspiration is, they should look animalistic, but look mutated, look twisted, look like you can't exactly tell what it
Yeah.
is. It looks gross.
I don't like spiders, so he's not a favorite of mine. Thanks for that. Appreciate that a lot.
Perfect, then it's working.
Hey, I hope he gets squashed.
He does. So there you go.
Hey, yeah, there is a god or a Kaiju. Hey,
Yes.
excellent. Each tribe has their own, I suppose, Kaiju, and as you said, it colours their beliefs massively. I'm blown away by the level of detail on the art.
hmm Yeah, and that's my favorite part of making this book, is when I get new pages from Chris, because like I've had this story in my head for a couple years, so I have an idea of what I want to happen. I have an
Mhm.
idea of how it's going to look, but his, then I always get the pages, and it just blows me away, because he takes whatever I had in my mind and just takes it to the next level. And
Okay.
like you said, that level of detail, and the the way he draws the monsters and the expressions and everything just really brings it to life in an amazing way.
It's the environments that get me, because on one half of the book it's deserted city, on the
hmm
other half of the book it's kind of jungle and underground, and you've kind of got the juxtaposition between the two there. That's cool. We talked a little bit before the break. Historically, Marvel. What's your inspiration then? Who's your influences when it comes to comic books? Obviously, Godzilla must be in there.
Yes, I mean, Godzilla. If I had to pick just a favorite character of any media, it would be Godzilla.
Not Godzuki though, right?
No, not so much. It's I will say, because so my sons are 7 and 3, and I've gotten them watching the old Godzilla movies, and so I've gained an appreciation for Godzuki because he makes them laugh, and I'm like, okay, if you look at him as comic relief, I still don't like him, but I at least get it now.
Yeah.
Um,
What was the ship called in the Godzilla cartoon? Can you remember?
and the cartoon, I'm not sure. We haven't watched that one as much, so I'm not sure on that one.
I believe, and Everyone can hit me up on Twitter if I'm wrong. I believe it was the Jellicoe. I think
I,
it was. There you go.
I believe you. I'll give it to you.
Hey, yeah, I even remember the theme song. I'm so bad. That's
Well,
terrible.
I mean, hey man, once you
I'm
if
not
you
singing
find something you like, there's no shame.
it. All right, so when you got Kaiju, I suppose you've also got Godzilla. You've got a little bit of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I suppose, in the 90s.
Yep.
There's the whole loads of lizard creatures in that thing.
Yeah.
It the kind of, it seems to me, Pacific Rim, the
Yes.
movie, is probably one of the standout Kaiju movies. Would you say?
Definitely. And that's one thing that's really cool as a kaiju fan in general right now is, for so long, there's been a lot of kaiju media over the years, but a lot of it just wasn't really accessible in the US for a long time. But now with the internet and, all the different like boutique companies that put out, like Arrow Video and stuff, there's a ton of kaiju media out there accessible. And so, even going back to like Gamera, which was kind of a kind of a knockoff of Godzilla, and like The Host, and just seeing, I try to watch a variety of kaiju media. Like I said, I like it. I'm a fan. I wanted to do a kaiju book, and the reason was those things have always appealed to me. Horizon Zero Dawn was another kind of inspiration, especially aesthetically, going in for that kind of futuristic tribal look.
Okay.
And this one, it doesn't have sort of the metal and the robot parts. It's more, kind of primal tribal, but I really like that juxtaposition of, a post-apocalyptic future with kind of an ancient past sort of feel.
Yeah, that works. One of my brother's favorite Godzilla movies is the Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla. So
yeah, that's a good one. And as far as newer ones, the new one from Japan that came out a couple years ago, Shin Godzilla. Like if you want to see again that really primal kind of evil interpretation of Godzilla, that's a good one, because he's very terrifying in that.
Cool. I mean, a few years back, Adams was massive with Godzilla for Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of died off from Dark Horse, as you said. Right. Okay. So this is your Kickstarter page. Yes, I am in the UK, so therefore it's in
all good.
pounds. However, here it is. It is. You are currently $1,465 pledged towards a $3,000 goal. So you are practically halfway there. Now, let's just put this into context for people. You are halfway there. This has been a time of recording. This has been a day old.
Yep. Yeah, we're just over 24 hours, about 2 hours over 24. So I feel very lucky. Like this is by far the best start any of the campaigns have gotten off to. I've been very lucky. Both of the first two did fund. But I think that the momentum behind this campaign, and a lot of the people that reached out to me or let me know what they thought of the book in the past have seemed to come back for this one. They seem excited about it. So I think that what we're doing, people are digging, and it's been awesome to get their feedback. And this was my favorite issue to write because, like I said, this one is the most action packed so far. It's got basically a big kaiju fight from start to finish, along with there's still a lot of the human story as well. So I think that if you've liked either of the first two issues, you'll really like this. If you haven't gotten into it yet, this is kind of a perfect time to jump on because this is when things really start to kind of ramp up for the story.
Cool. Right. Well, I've got to be honest, what I think is fantastic about your Kickstarter is, the money's great, don't get me wrong, but the number of backers.
Yes. Yeah, we had 162 on the last one, and we're at 69 exactly right now, which is
69, dude.
Exactly. It's always funny. It's stupid, but it's funny.
All right, so you've got your pledges going along the side as always. So you can have for $8 or more, you get your PDF and then a thank you on the thank you page. Excellent. Where are we? I do not like Kickstarter's little pledge bar. It does me head in every time. $10, you get a physical copy of the cover A, the PDF issue, and the thank you, and that ships anywhere in the world. That's a massive thing to be mindful of. And I tell this to everyone who looks at Kickstarters. Just if it ships all over the world, great. If it doesn't, well, then just pledge for the PDF copy, right? It's kind of
Yeah, and that
yeah.
and and unfortunately the only thing with the international is the shipping can be more expensive, and so that's why hopefully the PDF can be a good option for people as backup. But I figure if they're willing to pay the shipping, then I'd love to get them a physical copy. So just as many options as possible.
I have to say that I am a physical book over a digital book.
I am too.
Yeah. So I'm just having a quick look through. Physical copies, PDFs of 1 to 3. You've thought of absolutely everything, and you kind of think about how readers are going to interact with the book, which I think is great. If you like, as you say, if you want the physical copy, great, knock yourself out. If you just want the PDF, great, knock yourself out. I really think it's a really good shout. Really, really good shout. Oh, I like that cover. Check that out.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's the main cover for this new issue. Kind of definitely our biggest showcase for the Kaiju action so far.
Oh, he looks cute. Oh, bless him. He's just misunderstood. That's his problem. See what I'm doing it now. Oh, see what I'm doing. I'm anthropomorphic. Oh, he's just all misunderstood. Oh.
We can't help ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, my cat's cute when it's clawing at my feet. Yeah, great.
Right.
Right. So let's go for it. Let's have a small teaser for issue 3. I'm not going to give the game away on this because you know what? I want people to go and buy. I want people to go and pledge. So I'm not giving the game away for everything, but we'll go through a couple of pages just to see. All right, so straight up, you can see the quality of the art remains fantastic. The colors, look at the blood dripping down his fingers there. It's like proper. It's remained consistent. That's a huge credit to everyone involved, definitely.
Definitely, and I feel very fortunate we've been able to keep the same team for all the books, and that's something really important because I do think I love working with this team. The quality is great, and I want the whole thing to be told by the same people.
So that 3 issue, this is the fulcrum issue, isn't it? I always think for 5 issues, issue 1 is set up. Number 2, things start go a bit wrong. Number 3 is the kind of the swing from the beginning towards the start of the end point. Chapter 4 is always like I'm setting up the end, and number 5 is the end.
Definitely, and this was, like I said, this is definitely the most exciting one so far. It's kind of the climax in a lot of ways where you've got what happens in this book. I think will for people who have been following along, I think this will really be kind of the most impactful moment so far. So.
And on that point is where I'm going to stop looking at the art. There you go. That's where I'm stopping. You're not seeing any more past this point. I am, because I've got a review copy. So, no. There are some things that, as a writer, you have to play with my emotions as a reader. Yeah. So, from reading issues 1 and 2, I totally buy into Alkea's faith in the Kaiju. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know somewhere along the line that has to be tested. And at that point, my heart's going to go, no! And I might get put back together again. You just never know. So I think that's a credit to you, Blake, for kind of, regardless of my personal feelings on religion and faith and all that sort of stuff, you've given me a character who I can empathize with, and when her worldview changes, I feel emotionally attached to that. If she loses the faith in the Kaiju, I'll feel disappointed in her. I'll feel sad for her. And if she remains Kaiju blinkered, I'll be thinking, "Oh man, come on, wake up and smell the coffee." You can't win. So so that's a testament to you, isn't it? That's your writing that's made that you do that. So you've done that fantastically well in what I've read so far.
Well, Thank you. I mean, that's because, like you said, it doesn't, no matter what your personal beliefs are, we've all grown up, believing in something. And at some point, we've all had our beliefs challenged. We've had something happen that's shook the way we've looked at things or looked at someone or something like that. And that, I think, is kind of that's one of those universal truths. And so, yeah, so regardless on your feelings about religion specifically, you can be a part of Alkia's journey. She believes very firmly in something. She really tries to do the best based on her beliefs, and then she has to adapt and learn and change and deal with conflict to that belief. And we've all had something where we've had an idea or we've had something that we've really believed strongly in, and we've had to kind of question that and reevaluate. And yeah, I mean, sometimes your beliefs change, sometimes it strengthens your beliefs, but you have a greater understanding of why you believe that, or however it works out. But there's always that challenge for everyone to something they believe in. So that's kind of the universal truth I think anyone can get out of Alkia, and hopefully makes her a character that regardless of who you are, you can relate to and appreciate.
Perfect. What's the end goal for you then as a creator, Blake? Are you looking for to be picked up by a publisher? Are you happy with Kickstarter models? How's it work for you? What's the end goal? What's your big dream?
So I would like to see I would like to see Territory picked up eventually by a publisher that is kind of, I think, the next step that I'm going to start really looking into. So this is my first comic series, so just getting it made at all was my original goal, and I've been very lucky. People have been very supportive. It's turned out really well. So I'm planning on kickstarting all 5 issues, just because in the Kickstarter community, the indie community has been so welcoming and supportive that I want to make sure that everyone who supported me from the beginning has access to the whole story and can kind of go along with this journey with me. And hopefully after that it gets picked up. And the big reason is I just want I want more people to be able to read it. This is a story I'm proud of. This is honestly, I've had this story in my head for a couple of years, and so now seeing it come to life, I'd like as many people as possible to read it. So hopefully it can get picked up and distributed, and just get out there, and especially get out there to Kaiju fans, get out there to people who would enjoy kind of this niche of storytelling, and give them kind of a different kind of story than they're used to, and hopefully one they'll enjoy, and some characters that will hopefully because then when you start getting like fan art and stuff, and other people's ideas and stories and takes on your characters, that's when it's really interesting, because then the world just expands kind of naturally that way.
Just watch out when you see a cosplayer. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things too. That's why it's like, I hope it gets big enough for the people to enjoy it, to read it, and then after that, who knows?
Let me ask you a really personal question. This will be my last question before we wrap it up. As a writer, and when you get the book back from publishing, and it's all ready to go and stuff, you go through it again just to read it again. Do you still get that buzz when you see the beats of the story and think, wow, yeah? Do you still get that emotional attachment to the challenges ahead for the characters?
Definitely. And it's interesting because you're always your own harshest critic, and there's always things that when I see, when I get it back, I'm like, oh, I wish I tweaked it a little bit, or I wish I'd done this or that. But this has been such an amazing experience, just as being able to really create something. Like I said, when I first get the art back from Chris and seeing it brought to life, that's an amazing experience. Then when I see, the colors and the letters and the final, digital version, that's an experience. And then when you get to hold it in your hand, you're like, I made this, we made this together. This thing that I've had in my head is now real. I'm holding it. I can share it with other people. Like, that's kind of the ultimate, creative experience is, hey, I've made something, I'm proud of it, and now I can show it to other people. I can share this, I can share it with my kids, I can share it with my friends, and share kind of the things I've been thinking and wanting to do. So I definitely still get that buzz, and I'm, like I said, I feel very lucky, but I'm also very inspired to really keep pushing to make this story the best it can be. It's turned out really well so far, but I am still learning, so I'm hoping to keep it going, and by the end, it'll be something that everyone who reads it really really appreciates it and really enjoys it.
Cool. Excellent. There you go. Check out the book, here are some links for you to have a look at. There you go. There's the Kickstarter page. Go and pause it if you have to, but don't make sure my face isn't put a funny thing. All right. Or you could just put territory in the Kickstarter page. I'm sure it'll take you there. All right. That's cool. If to keep up to date with Blake and all his books, you can check him out on Twitter and Instagram. It's at BMC Comics for both of those. Check those daily for updates. I'm sure Blake will be pounding those for them, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right. Blake, thank you so much for spending the time. Thank you so much for reaching out in the first place. I'm absolutely blown away. Your book looks fantastic. It reads really well. I love Godzilla. I'm not a huge Kaiju fan, but I was like, whoa, I'm in this now, and I can't wait. Thank you so much for sending the copies across. I am very, very impressed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. As an indie creator, having people help spread the word is huge. So thank you for what you do, and glad you enjoyed it.
We love indie books on Outside the Panels. All right, there you go. That's it. We're done with this show. Blake, thanks for your time. Don't forget to check out UCPN for all your favorite shows, including No Price Podcast, which Blake will be watching now every Tuesday.
Yes.
And if you're interested in indie comics, don't forget to check out Flipside Focus for all your indie needs, including Kickstarter alerts on books that are due. There you go. And if you like your comics a little bit older, then of course you have the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. The most recent issue or episode, Star Wars Special. There you go. Go check it out for some Marvel Dark Horse and a couple of Star Wars surprises thrown in for good measure. There you go. Right. Okay. Blake, thanks once more. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Host. You're welcome. I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes, and as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.